Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to the channel. Well, today we're talking about Star Trek Picard, episode 9 of season 2 entitled Hide and Seek. You might notice I've got my new background up today. Finally got the new background printed up. We've got all the different Star Trek series now. I've added Strange New Worlds to the bottom and I've also added the animated series. I think a few people kind of said over the last couple of years, oh, why haven't you got an animated series poster up there as well? So I thought I'd add both of those to the new poster design with Strange New Worlds starting next week. I thought let's update the background so that we've got all of our Star Trek series there on display. So this week's episode of Picard was very interesting. We had Agnes versus the Borg Queen in a fight for dominance and to who was going to take control of the ship. We had Picard's flashbacks of all the little stories and interactions that he had with his parents when he was a child and a final resolution to that story that we've been getting glimpses of throughout the course of the season. We had Rios looking after Teresa and Ricardo and getting shot and trying to get back in the fight after getting beamed away. Seven and Raffy doing their best Thelma and Louise or Butch and Sundance routine as they try to fight off all the various different Borgified special ops commandos. And Talon and Picard playing hide and seek themselves against Sung and the rest of the commandos. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to Sci-Finatics yet, please don't forget to click on that big red button to stay up to date and current with all the latest Star Trek news on YouTube. We've got Strange New Worlds starting next week, so there's going to be so much content to go over. It was a quite an interesting episode this week, but let's break it down, have a look, and see what it had to offer. So first off, we had Rios whisking Teresa and Ricardo to safety, getting them off the ship as all of the Borgified commandos appear with Queen Jurati in tow. And we get to see Jurati getting out of the red dress and into the Borg outfit, aka the Borg Queen's garb that she's had on. Used a little bit of a transfer of nanoprobes to give her the full-on outfit. So that was kind of a nifty wardrobe change. The backbone of this episode was the psychological battle between the Borg Queen and Jurati. Jurati trying desperately to claw back control from the Borg Queen trying to do everything she can to take over. And Jurati is no dummy. She's implemented some measures to lock the Borg Queen out of the computer. She's downloaded Elnor's, I guess, combat profile or something from whatever the computer has scanned of Elnor in the past. And she's managed to program a holographic Elnor, complete with mobile emitter, to protect the ship from the Borg Queen trying to take it over. So good to see Elnor back in this episode. Obviously, up until this point, we've got these little kind of sort of daydream moments almost from Raffy, kind of, you know, seeing Elnor pop up in places like hopping off the bus and at the gala event. But now we get a bit more Elnor in holographic form in this episode. So great to see him back to kick some butt in this episode. The other mainstay of this episode was knowing a bit more about Picard's history and backstory. We got to know what had actually gone down with him as a child and what was going on in terms of the animosity between him and his father and what was the deal with his mother. And obviously there were some mental health issues there with her. And there was obviously a very strong bond and connection between him and his mum. But his dad was essentially just trying to protect her mum from herself. She had some, mental health issues, a bit of depression. And Picard obviously has a lot of guilt because he was just trying to help his mum. And obviously as a kid didn't know what potentially she was capable of in terms of self-harm and everything. And, that obviously went down, an unfortunate path. So it was good to see a final resolution to this angle of the storyline because we've kind of been leading up to it in flashes and moments and everything, going back right to the first episode, all these little boyhood moments of Picard on the vineyard. And it's kind of good to get that full picture now of actually what actually happened. Draw a little bit of a light on mental health issues and everything and, how debilitating they can be for some people. Now, in trying to get Ricardo and Teresa to safety, obviously Rios gets shot and has to do a quick emergency beam out to Talon's hidden 60s apartment. And he obviously gets locked out because Picard says, no, he's wounded, let's get him out of the battle. And then we obviously have to have a nice scene there between Rios and Teresa. Which furthers the relationship a bit more. And she obviously wants him to stay. He'd like to stay, but he feels he can't. But that being said, the decision might be made for him, based on the fact that at the end of this episode, minus a ship. So it'll be interesting to see where our whole Rios and Teresa relationship ends up at the end of the season, because we were thinking, well, are they going to end up in the future? Is Rios going to stay in the 21st century? I think it could go either way. I think we could have Rios staying in the past, or we could have Teresa and Ricardo come back to the future with him. So yeah, who quite knows how that's going to play out, but it'll be interesting to see. I love the parallel in this episode, how we've got all of the Borgified special ops team with their green laser sights on their rifles, which distinctly mirrors the red laser sights you normally get on the Borg drones, that you're always seeing the little red laser sights going around the place when the Borg are coming. And it was a nice parallel, I thought, in terms of having the special ops guys with the green laser sights on their rifles, just to kind of get that same sort of feel of the Borg drones, coming out of the shadows, so to speak. There's a large chunk of this episode with Seven and Raffy kind of on the run from the commandos, trying to, battle their way to the ship and everything, which was a nice few scenes with these guys in this episode. There's very much a almost like a Thelma and Louise or a Butch and Sundance kind of vibe I found between these guys. It was a hopeless cause. They were kind of on the run. They felt outnumbered. It probably wasn't going to end well, but they were pushing forward nonetheless. There's a pretty cool fight scene between Seven and Raffy and one of the commandos. I thought that was well done. They kind of had to work together to take this guy out. And I love the conversation that Seven and Raffy had about Raffy saying, hey, you should be a captain. What's going on here? And the little bit of backstory that we got from Seven saying, I tried to join Starfleet when I got back with Voyager, but the Federation and Starfleet was kind of a little bit iffy about a Borg joining Starfleet. They were sort of a bit nervous, and that Janeway went to bat for Seven, but it wasn't enough to get them to agree. So she ended up joining the Fenris Rangers instead. So I thought that was a nice little fill in the blanks bit of backstory there with Seven. I love the addition of Elnor in this episode, with him kicking ass with all the different commandos, taking them down one by one. He obviously did a bit of hand-to-hand stuff. He went through the armory, the weapon, choosing guns, but then he found his sword, so he got to use that again. We also saw Elnor with the immobile emitter, the same as what the Doctor wore in Star Trek Voyager. I thought that was nice. It took a few moments for me to catch on to that. It was like the first few times it was sort of a bit hidden, but then hang on, he's wearing a mobile emitter. I thought that was a nice inclusion. We saw some interesting ways to take out or dispatch the commandos in the form of Seven beaming them into solid rock, which I think we've kind of hinted at this sort of moment over more than one Star Trek episode and Star Trek series over the years, where we don't want to push the wrong buttons on the transporter because you'll end up beamed inside the rock or solid rock or something to that effect. But we finally saw it. We finally saw what happens when you get your transport coordinates wrong, where you can beam somebody right into the middle of a wall, which didn't work out so well for a few of these commandos. But it was good to see this tactic employed. The scenes with Picard and Talon sort of wandering the catacombs underneath the chateau, I think they weren't that interesting on them by themselves. I think they were kind of played out well in conjunction with the flashbacks to Picard as a boy. I think as he kind of went around corners and saw different things, they would remind him of the past and the hide and seek game that he was playing with his mother. So I thought they facilitated that, but in of themselves, there wasn't anything in there that was that mind-blowing. I think it was pretty much there just to service the flashbacks. I thought it was fun towards the end of this episode to see the fight sequence between Elnor and Jurati. I thought, hey, this is going to be a bit of fun. I bet Alison Pill didn't think she'd be doing hand-to-hand sword-style combat and everything when she signed up to play the role. And it's certainly I think Alison Pill has shown such a great range in this season. I think we've seen everything from funny Jurati to sad Jurati to Borg Queen Jurati. There's been so many different versions of Jurati this season where we've seen such a good range of performance from her. So my hat goes off to Alison Pill this season. I think she's done a great job. And obviously seeing Seven impaled by the Borg Queen and then having to save her life after Agnes talking the Borg Queen around into courses of action in terms of how are things going to end up for you. Let's just analyse things one at a time and see how this is going to play out if you don't go down the right path here. So I thought that was interesting. I thought the Borg Queen maybe agreed to her course of action a little bit too quickly, perhaps. I think there was a little bit of resistance there, but I thought this, getting the Borg Queen to only assimilate people who wanted to be assimilated and just take all the sort of, the lost people or whatever who agree rather than forcing people against their will was an interesting take on things. And obviously, this is pointing directly at the first episode of the season. Obviously, going right back to, I think it was episode maybe 3 of this season, everybody's going, oh yeah, well Agnes is going to be the Borg Queen that we see in the very first episode on board the Stargazer. Surely that's going to be Agnes. Now that's pretty much what we've been thinking since about the 3rd episode of this season. If it does play out that way, then I think it's not going to be unsatisfying. I think it's a logical conclusion to the story, but let's face it, if that is the case, we could see it coming a mile away. As soon as you could see the Borg Queen schmoozing with Agnes and trying to turn her into a Borg Queen, it became pretty clear that the Borg Queen in episode 1 is most likely going to turn out to be Agnes. I think it's expected, satisfying yet a highly predictable ending. I think Brent Spiner was good in this episode. I think he always plays the villain well. He's sort of been channeling, a combination of his sort of Sung villain-esque roles, whether it be, Arik Sung or Law. There's always a little bit of that evil mastermind edge there to his performance as one of the Sung relatives and so forth. And I think he did a good job in this episode, channeling those sort of, evil mastermind kind of, flavors that he's done many times before, in a few different roles. It was interesting to see the fact that, in order to save Seven's life at the end, the Borg Queen, aka Jurati, had to turn her back into a Borg in order to repair the damage that was done. This is a good resolution to Seven's Borg/human arc this season. Obviously, we've seen her freed up from the implants. Throughout the course of the season, it sort of freed her, lifted a bit of that weight from her, but now, in order to save her life, she's had to, go back to having the implants, which, I guess was always going to be the case. We always knew that Seven was going to end up being Borg 7 again. She wasn't going to return, as being Human 7 again. So, yeah, I think this was to be expected, and I think it sort of, is a nice rounded out the whole, battle that she had going on throughout the course of the season with her human self and her Borg self. I thought the ending was really interesting in this episode because we had the Borg Queen, which isn't the Borg Queen anymore. Not Jurati, not the Borg Queen, a blending of the two. We weren't seeing the fight going on between the two at the end there. There was more of a alliance between the two, or an allegiance between Borg Queen and Jurati into something in the middle, perhaps. A bit of a compromise between the two. And by saving Seven's life, obviously she got to take the ship, which she's going to go off and, no doubt fly off to the Delta Quadrant and make the Borg good, not bad now. We're going to do good Borg things, not bad Borg things. We're going to ask people permission before we assimilate them. Please, if you don't mind, add your biological and technological systems to our own. That would be very helpful, thank you. So whether we're going to see a more polite Borg, less bossy Borg in the future, I think that would be interesting to see what the difference is going to be. And obviously at the end, we've lost La Serena. Jurati's taken the last Serena off. I like the little shot at the end, the last shot of this episode of them zipping off in the ship was kind of very Back to the Future 2. The opening of Back to the Future 2 where Biff sees the DeLorean go through time or whatever and leaving the fire trails. I thought the last Serena shooting off or whatever in the sky, I thought was kind of very reminiscent of that shot from that movie. Obviously with a big time travel themed season, I thought that was a nice little nod to that moment in Back to the Future 2. And of course this leaves our crew without a ride. How are our guys going to get back to the 25th century? Well, maybe the whole Duquesne angle isn't lost after all. Maybe we are going to see Duquesne after all. Because now that they're without a ship, they have no way of getting back to the 25th century. And we know that they have to get back to the 25th century for season 3. So maybe the whole story angle that I'd kind of dismissed of Wells being Duquesne isn't perhaps lost yet. Maybe there's still hope for that one to play out. All in all, I enjoyed this episode. I think it had a nice amount of resolutions to certain story angles, particularly the whole Picard flashback stuff going on with him from a child. I think that sort of played out satisfactorily. And we had some action, we had some character stuff with a lot of the characters, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens in our final episode next week, which is going to be very busy next week because we've got the season finale of Star Trek Picard and their first episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds airing on the same day. So I have yet to decide whether I'm going to do Strange New Worlds first or whether I'm going to do Picard finale first. I'm just going to have to have a look and see where my passions on that particular day lie. But it's certainly going to be a fun next Thursday. Please leave a super thanks if you're able to. Leave your thoughts in the comments section. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And please don't forget to check out my merch store where you can pick up cool Star Trek flavoured t-shirts and hoodies and mugs and caps and stickers and you name it. It's all there. Help support the channel and you get a great bargain in the process. Guys, I'll be back very soon with my next video. I'll catch you soon.